So, Simone, you have this rare perch of you worked for President Biden on his campaign. You traveled with Vice President Harris, well, then when she was a candidate, and you also worked for her when she was the vice president. This has probably been a very emotional week for you, and I want you to talk about that. But also what you thought of the speech that you just watched.
Well, I was getting my makeup touched up when I was back to listen to the speech, and I was like, with my little tissues, because there are great elected officials and great people that have done great things, but they are not great or good people. But Joe Biden has done great things in this presidency, but he is a good person. And as I was listening to his speech, the lines about it's been an honor of my life to serve as your president, but in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I went back to that first day that I sat down in Joe Biden's house. And I had talked to a lot of different candidates that were saying they wanted to run for president in 2020. But I didn't talk to Joe Biden. I was like ducking his campaign manager at the time, Greg Schultz, because I'm like, he's the former vice president of the United States of America. There's lots of people, I'm sure, that he has to pick from. And they're like, actually, the vice president would like to meet with you. And I said, well, I am not going to duck a former vice president. So I go to Joe Biden's house. I'm supposed to be there for like 20 minutes. We sit down. He's like, my staff is very impressed with you. I'm like, well, what about you, sir? And I end up being there for about like an hour, hour and a half. I had a flight that night. I had to say, sir, I have to go. Like Dr. Biden ended up coming. It felt like I had known Joe Biden since I was 15 years old. And in that conversation, I asked him, I said, well, why do you want to run for president? Because at that time, there were so many people in the race. And he said what he said tonight, what he has said many times, we've all heard him say, well, I believe the soul of our country is at stake. He felt that in his bones. And the reason he was in that race in 2020 was because he felt that in his bones. And he felt that he could, if he could do something about it, he didn't want to sit on the sidelines. And so over the last 3 weeks, to just see how people who I know love Joe Biden, but how they have talked about Joe Biden, I just think that man that we saw sitting at the Resolute desk tonight, he deserved a little bit more than that. He deserved the dignity that the people within his party did not give him over the last 3 weeks. And frankly, what I took away from his speech, actually, is he is saying, yes, I'm passing the torch. This is why I made the decision. But also, I am not done yet. Because also the way people have been talking about Joe Biden since last Sunday is though he is about to get on a plane and fly off into the sunset and stay in Rehoboth for the next 6-7 months. He is the president until January 20th, 2025. People are talking about him as though he is about to be eulogized in an oak box in about a month. And that is, in fact, not the case. He has work to do. And I think the best way to, and you can disagree with Joe Biden. Yeah, we've all disagreed with Joe Biden, frankly. But he has done great things, but he's a good man. And I think people who want to honor the legacy of that good man, the best way to do that is to acknowledge that his work is not yet done. And there are benchmarks that he has set for himself that he has not yet met. And there are more commitments he made to the American people. And we should hold him accountable to those as well as he finishes out his term.
It's interesting that you make that point, because in some ways, exiting the presidential race gives him a chance to fully be president for the next 6 months without the distraction of having to do rallies and travel around and exhaust himself doing both. In some ways, it was a decision to say, I'm going to fully be president for the last 6 months. We normally call that a lame duck. But this is sort of the most anti-lame duck speech that I think we could have heard from the president, because what he said is, no, I've devoted my life to this, and now I'm going to devote the rest of my presidency to this. And in a way, it actually is the best of both worlds, not just for the party, but more importantly, this is not a normal election. I've always been obsessed with politics. I love politics. This is not a fun sort of political, this is not Mitt Romney versus, this is the stakes. The stakes here are whether we're a democracy. It's whether we survive as a multiracial democracy or whether we become literally an autocracy. So in a sense, the pure selflessness of saying it's more important to me to finish this work than to extend my ambition to run for a second term, I think actually makes it even a stronger and more important decision.
Well, it's too big of a job for any one person. And the idea that he can be there doing the structural things to gird and protect democracy, to continue to bolster NATO, to do the things, some of which he alluded to tonight, while she's out sort of frantically and frenetically, barnstorming for the next 106 days is pretty extraordinary.